nervous tissue. So here mainly it is formed by non-myelinated nerve fibers of the hypothalamo-hypophyseal tract, and the cell body of these non-myelinated nerve fibers, they are located in three regions of the just 1 minute. Okay, the slide is visible to you now. Neurohypophysis?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So you see, I was telling like it is a nervous tissue and mainly made up of non-myelinated nerve fibers of the hypothalamo-hypophyseal tract, and the cell body of these non-myelinated nerve fibers, they are located in three regions of the hypothalamus, mainly the supraoptic nucleus. So this area, so this is the supraoptic nucleus. Then the paraventricular nucleus, that means this area, the PV. Then thirdly, in the parvicellular nucleus, okay, not neuron, nucleus. So in these three areas, that means you see this is the neural lobe. Okay, so here these lines you can see here, so these all are non-myelinated nerve fiber. That means they are non-myelinated axonal fibers. Okay, so these axonal fibers, if you see, their cell bodies are located in three areas of the hypothalamus, and those three areas are the supraoptic nucleus, paraventricular nucleus, and parvicellular nucleus. So in these three areas the cell bodies are located, and their axonal fibers come down towards the pituitary gland and converge in the neural lobe actually to form this neural lobe here. So I was telling, so this neurohypophysis, basically it is a nervous tissue and made up of non-myelinated nerve fibers. The cell bodies are located here, and in this image actually, if you see here, this is the hypothalamus region. I have discussed about it in the common class last Saturday, so I think you remember. So in this area actually these nucleuses will be located, and these neurons that are present in this area, so they are all neurosecretory type of neurons, and their secretory products are mainly hormones. Basically you can say they release these hormones. Some of them are releasing factor hormone and some are inhibitory factor hormone. That means that these neurons, okay, their product are releasing hormones or inhibitory hormone. Now if you remember, in this pars distalis, basically there are different types of cells producing hormone. One is somatotropes, which will secrete the growth hormone. Then there are lactotropes, which will secrete prolactin. Okay, then there are thyrotropes, which will secrete thyroid stimulating hormone. That thyroid stimulating hormone in turn will go and act on the thyroid gland, and it will lead to release of T3 and T4. Similarly, yes, unable to join. Wait. Welcome. Okay, so here you see, I was telling like in the pars distalis, there are various cells producing different types of hormone, and those hormone producing cell, their activity is in turn controlled by these neurons here. Okay, the neurons of the parvicellular nucleus. Okay, so if these neurons they releasing factors, then all the hormones here in the all the hormone producing cells of the pars distalis, they will get activated and they will start producing hormone. Okay, but if these neurons of the parvicellular nucleus, they start secreting inhibitory factors. Okay, then what will happen? These cells here, the somatotropes, the lectotropes, gonadotropes, okay, so they will stop producing hormone or stop secreting hormone. That means the activity of the cells of the pars distalis, they are controlled by the neurosecretory neurons present in the parvicellular nucleus. Okay, that means all these cells, these neurons, they are neurosecretory neurons. Okay, then in addition to these releasing and inhibiting factors, two more hormones are secreted by the neurosecretory neurons. One is oxytocin and the other one is antidiuretic hormone. So the oxytocin and antidiuretic hormones, they are secreted by the neurosecretory neuron of supraoptic nucleus and paraventricular nucleus. Okay, that means you see in this area, three types of hormones are produced. The supraoptic nucleus and paraventricular nucleus, they will secrete oxytocin and diuretic hormone, antidiuretic hormone, whereas the parvicellular neurons, they will secrete releasing factors and inhibiting factors, which in turn will control the activity of the different cells of the pars distalis. Okay, now here one thing you should know again. You see this oxytocin and antidiuretic hormones, they are produced in the cell body here. From they will start migrating downward through the axonal process this way, and they will reach the neural lobe. So once they reach the neural lobe, they will come out of the axonal process and they will enter into the bloodstream and they will exert their action in different part of the body. Okay, so now this oxytocin and antidiuretic hormone, as they descends downward along the axonal fiber, then what happens that aggregation of these two hormones, they may form some bulge in the axonal fibers. Okay, and such bulges are called as herring body. Okay, so if you see here, this is the herring body. So herring body are nothing, they are aggregation of oxytocin and antidiuretic hormones seen within the cytoplasm of the axonal fibers of the neurosecretory neurons. Now, if you see here, this is an actual image here. So this dark structure that you see, so these are all herring bodies. So herring bodies are nothing, those are aggregation of oxytocin and antidiuretic hormone. Okay, so now you see, this is nervous tissue means what? Axonal fibers. To support these axonal fibers now, there will be some supporting glial cells which are called as pituitary-cytes. So pituitary-cytes are the supporting cells of the neural lobe. Okay, so these dark structures are the herring body, and whereas these cells that you see here, no, so these are all pituitary-cytes. They may be astrocytes, they may be microglial cells. Okay, so different types of microglial cells or glial cells will be found within the neural lobe, and those together they are called as the pituitary-cytes. So just in brief, to summarize what I have told, you see the neurohypophysis, it is a nervous tissue mainly formed by non-myelinated nerve fibers and pituitary-cytes. So two structural components you can write. Pituitary-cytes are the supporting cells and non-myelinated nerve fibers will be there. And the cell body of these nerve fibers are located in three regions of the hypothalamus. It is supraoptic nucleus, paraventricular nucleus, and parvicellular nucleus. Okay, and these neuronal cell bodies or these neurons that are found in these three areas, they are all neurosecretory neurons, and they produce three types of hormones. One group is the releasing and inhibiting factors secreted by the parvicellular neurons, then oxytocin and antidiuretic hormone. So that was about the neurohypophysis of the pituitary gland. So the next gland that I'm going to discuss is the pineal gland. Now here again, this is a section of the brain, sagittal section. Here you see this structure that I'm encircling here. So this is the pineal gland. Okay, now here again, this is thalamus. Around the thalamus, this area is third ventricle. Okay, so this is hypothalamus, and above that, this is the pineal gland. So pineal gland is on the roof of the third ventricle. Okay, and this pineal gland, this is also called as the epiphysis. Okay, the other name for pineal gland is epiphysis. Now, the pineal gland, it is a dorsal outgrowth of the diencephalon. So diencephalon, it is a part of the brain, isn't it? So this area is actually the diencephalon. So from the diencephalon, the pineal gland develops, and that's why it is called as a dorsal outgrowth of the diencephalon. And the pineal gland, if you see, it will be actually covered by pyometer. Okay, and that pyometer in turn will form the capsule of the pineal gland. That means this pineal gland will be always covered by a layer of connective tissue capsule, and that connective tissue capsule is nothing, it is but the pyometer. Okay, the pyometer which encapsulate the pineal gland will form a capsule. In addition to that, you should know one more thing here. You see, the pineal gland is always connected to the third ventricle. So this area is third ventricle. Okay, so it is always connected to the third ventricle by one hollow tubular stalk-like structure. Okay, and that tubular stalk connecting the pineal gland to the third ventricle, no? So that is hollow. And because of that, a part of the third ventricle enters into that hollow stalk. And so this area of the third ventricle here, so this is called as pineal recess, RECESS. Okay, so it is called as pineal recess. So the pineal gland is a dorsal outgrowth of the diencephalon, and it is covered by a connective tissue capsule derived from the pyometer. And from that connective tissue capsule, irregular septas, or you can say connective tissue septas, develop, which divides the gland into irregular lobe. Let us say this is a section of the pineal gland. So what I am drawing, let us say this is the capsule or pyometer, which is covering the pineal gland, or we can just call it as the capsule of the pineal gland. So this is capsule. Okay, now from this capsule, connective tissue trabeculae will develop, and they will invade into the parenchyma this way. Okay, so these are connective tissue septas or trabeculae. Irregular connective tissue septas or trabeculae will arise from the capsule and invade into the parenchyma of the gland. As a result, this gland will be divided into many irregular lobules. So this is one lobule, this is another lobule. Okay, like that. You will have many lobules. So these are all lobules. You see, these are all lobules. That means connective tissue septas will arise from the capsule and will divide the parenchyma into irregular lobules. Okay, and inside the lobule, the parenchymal cells of the pineal gland, they may arrange themselves into some cord. So I told you last class, so this type of radial arrangement is called cord-like arrangement, or they may form some follicule. So this is follicular arrangement. Okay, so you may have the parenchymal cells arranged as some cord, or they may arrange themselves into some follicle this way. So two type of arrangement you may find. Now within this lobule, basically you find three types of cells. Okay, the cells of the pineal gland, if you see, there are three types. The main principal cells, those are called as the pinealocytes. Okay, and supporting the pinealocytes, there will be glial cells. So the second type of cells are glial cells. And the third type of cells, those are called as ependymal cells. Okay, so inside the pineal gland, you find three types of cell: pinealocyte, glial cells, or ependymal cells. Actually, this ependymal cell, no, so this is a type of glial cell only. It is a type of supporting cell only. But for your convenience, just I am classifying them into three types. So you can say inside the pineal gland, three types of cells are there: pinealocytes, glial cells, and ependymal cells. Or you can say this glial cell, for them you can also write as astrocytes. Okay, glial cells or rather you should write astrocytes. You can say inside the pineal gland, 3 types of cells are there: pinealocytes, astrocytes, and ependymal cells. Now, if you look at the pinealocytes are stellate-shaped cells. That means they are somewhat star-shaped, you can say, this type of cell, star-shaped cell. They are stellate-shaped cells, and they are cytoplasmic processes. So these stellate type of cells, they will have cytoplasmic process this way. So let us say these are cytoplasmic processes. And this cytoplasmic process, actually, they are near the perivascular space. Let us say here you have one capillary. Okay, so all the cytoplasmic process, usually they will go and near some capillaries. Let us say another capillary is here. Just remember, pinealocytes are star-shaped or stellate-shaped cells with cytoplasmic processes ending near a capillary or in the perivascular space. And these pinealocytes, they are responsible for secretion of one hormone that is called as melatonin. Okay, the pineal gland secretes the hormone melatonin. Now, which cell of the pineal gland secretes the melatonin? The pinealocytes. So try to remember, melatonin hormone is secreted by the pinealocytes. Questions may be asked like, melatonin is secreted by dash cells. So you have to write, it is the pinealocytes. Okay, now as we all know, this melatonin, the secretion of melatonin hormone, okay, it is activated in darkness. That means whenever there is darkness, then only there is secretion of melatonin. That means during day or when you are under some light, then their pineal gland will not secrete melatonin. Pineal gland will start secreting melatonin whenever you are in some dark area or whenever there is darkness. Okay, so that's why the pineal gland is also called as the third eye. So remember that other name for pineal gland is third eye. Why the pineal gland is called third eye? Because it secretes the hormone melatonin, and the secretion of melatonin is in turn regulated by the intensity of light. If there is light, then there is no secretion of melatonin. If there is darkness, then only there is secretion of melatonin. So as a result, you see, we know when it is dark or when it is bright through our eyes, isn't it? So similarly, we have got two eyes, so we call the pineal gland as the third eye, because the pineal gland is also sensitive to light. Very common questions are being asked. Okay, so try to remember this third eye. Pineal gland, the other name for pineal gland is also third eye. Then the supporting cells, if you see, those are, I told you, two types. One is astrocytes. So astrocytes, they are type of neuroglial cells which will support the pinealocytes. Suppose you have a pinealocytes here this way. Okay, its support processes will be there. Then near the pinealocytes, you will have one more cell, that is the astrocytes, which will have again lots of cytoplasmic processes. And these cytoplasmic processes in turn will support the gland this way. Okay, so this type of arrangement. So this is pinealocytes and these are all astrocytes. Okay, astrocytes also will have cytoplasmic processes, and this process in turn will support the pineal gland. Then the third type of cells, those are called as ependymal cells. So ependymal cells are columnar cells which will line the pineal recess. Now if you see here, this area is pineal recess. That means recess means cavity this way. Suppose this is the cavity of third ventricle and that cavity extends into the pineal gland here. Okay, suppose this is pineal gland. So this is the connection between the pineal gland and the third ventricle. Okay, so this is called as the pineal stalk. Okay, and this stalk is hollow. As a result, the cavity of the third ventricle is also found, a part of the cavity of third ventricle is also found in the stalk connecting the pineal gland to the third ventricle. And this part of the extension of the cavity of third ventricle, so this is called as pineal recess. Okay, and this pineal recess in turn will be lined by some cells here, and those cells we call them as ependymal cells. Okay, so the cells that are found on the inner lining of the pineal recess, so those are called as ependymal cells. Whereas the pinealocytes and the astrocytes, they are found within the pineal gland, whereas the ependymal cells, they are found in the stalk connecting the pineal recess or stalk accommodating the pineal recess. So this is a picture or a slide of the pineal gland. So here you see these dark cells, dark nucleus that you see, these are all astrocytes, whereas these large cells with large blue nucleus you can see with nucleolus. You can see one dot here, so that is a nucleolus, and the surrounding blue area is the nucleus. The cell body is not so distinct, but you can make out the cell body here this way. So this is one pinealocyte, this is another pinealocyte, then like that you have, these are all pinealocytes, whereas these are all astrocytes. Now you can see this type, many lines you can see here, isn't it? So these lines are the cytoplasmic processes of the astrocytes and also the pinealocyte, because I told you pinealocytes also have cytoplasmic process, astrocytes also have cytoplasmic process, and their cytoplasmic processes will form a meshwork here. Okay, so these lines are all cytoplasmic processes of the astrocytes and pinealocytes. And to differentiate the astrocytes from pinealocytes, you see astrocytes will have a somewhat irregular shaped dark nucleus, whereas the pinealocytes will have a somewhat light nucleus with clear nucleoli. Okay, so this is a slide of pineal gland. Now, one more very important thing you have to know regarding the pineal gland is this term, the brain sand or corpora arnacea. Okay, very, very important this point. Questions are usually asked like, brain sand is seen in which gland? So you'll have to write it as in pineal gland. Now, what is this brain sand and where do you find? Actually, you see in old animal, when the animal become old, so there will be deposition of calcium. Okay, in old animal, there is deposition of calcium in the pineal gland, and such calcium deposits, they appear as some dark granules within the pineal gland, and those granules are called as what? Brain sand. Okay, so brain sand are nothing, those are only calcium deposits. And where do you find? You find them in the pineal gland of older animal. Am I clear? Hello class. Okay, so remember brain sand, very, very important. I'm encircling here. Third eye, very important. Regarding pineal gland, usually this type of questions are asked like third eye. Okay, which gland is also called as third eye? Why it is called? Okay, then what is brain sand? Then you have to write it is calcium deposits seen in old animal, in the pineal gland of old animal. Now, next gland I'm going to discuss is the thyroid gland. So the thyroid gland, again, it is covered by a connective tissue capsule, just like the pineal glands. Let us say this is the capsule. Okay, from this capsule again trabeculae arises, that again divides the gland into number of lobules. So this is one lobule, 2, 3, 4, 5, like that. You'll have number of lobules. And each lobule now, each lobule will have one thyroid follicle, then it will have parafollicular cells, and it will have interstitium, that is interstitial connective tissue will be there. Okay, that means if you see here, now this is a follicle. Okay, now if you look at this image, this outer covering, so this is the capsule. Okay, this is the connective tissue capsule made up of dense irregular connective tissue. So this is the capsule. Within the capsule, let us say this area is one lobule. Okay, now inside one lobule of thyroid gland, what are the different structures you will find? You will find follicles. So you see this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 follicles you can see here. Right? Okay, now adjacent to the follicule, this type of cells you see here. So these are called as parafollicular cells. So you can find 1, 2, 3, almost 4 parafollicular cells. Then there is interstitium. Interstitium means the connective tissue that is between the follicle, interstitial connective tissue. Okay, so these areas, so these are all interstitium. So this is interstitium. Now if you look here, this interstitium, this is made up of loose connective tissue. Loose connective tissue, whereas the capsule is made up of dense irregular connective tissue. And in this interstitium, if you see, there will be many blood vessels or sinusoids. Okay, so these structures that you see here, so these are all sinusoids. Okay, sinusoids you will find in the interstitium. So remember, within the lobule you will find thyroid follicle, parafollicular cells, interstitium, which is filled with sinusoids and lymphatic vessels. Now if you look at the follicles, then we see these follicles are vesicular. Vesicular means they will have a cavity inside. Okay, and these vesicles in turn are lined by cells. Okay, and these cells, they are called as what? Follicular cells. So these are all follicular cells. So this is follicular cell. So you have follicular cells lining the follicles. And these follicular cells in turn will be supported by a basal lamina. Basal lamina, I think all of you know, there is basement membrane and there is basal lamina. Both are different structures. I think in the epithelial tissue you have been told about basal lamina. Let us assume this is basal lamina. Over the basal lamina you will have the follicular cells this way. Okay, so here the basal lamina is not distinct. So if it is, it will be seen here this way. This way, we'll have basal lamina. Now these vesicles or cavity of the follicle will in turn be filled with colloid. Okay, they will be filled with colloid. So these yellow structures are all colloid. And the morphology of the follicular cell changes with the physiological state of the follicle. Now suppose if this follicle is in a secretory stage, then the shape of the cell will be different. If this follicle is in a resting state, then the shape of this follicle, these follicular cells will be different. Okay, that means the type of cell, they may be flat squamous type or they may be columnar type. Okay, so their shape, morphology, whether these cells will be squamous type or columnar type will depend upon the physiological stage or phase of the follicle. So depending upon the physiological state, actually, we divide the follicle into various phases. One is, rather two phases there. One is resting phase and other one is secretory phase. Now, if the follicle, if suppose this follicle is in resting phase, then the follicular cells will be low cuboidal to squamous in shape. Okay, they will be low cuboidal to squamous in shape if it is in resting phase. And also the colloid in a resting follicle will be dense and uniform. Okay, so from there, if you see, most of these follicles here, they are all in resting phase. Because you see, the colloid here is dense and it is uniform. Okay, whenever the follicle is in active stage, then you will find many vacuoles or gaps will be there. Okay, within the colloid. And these cells will appear tall, somewhat tall this way. Okay, but here if you see, these cells, the follicular cells here are somewhat low. Okay, they are low cuboidal to squamous type and the colloid is homogeneous. From that we can say most of the follicles here are in resting phase. Now the other phase is stimulated phase or in secretory phase. So when the follicle is in secretory phase, then these follicular cells become tall, cuboidal or columnar in shape. That means if this is the basal lamina, in a resting phase, the cells will be small this way. But if it is in secretory phase, the cells will become tall this way. Okay, they will become tall, cuboidal in shape, and they will have apical microvilli. That means towards their apical surface, there will be microvilli this way. Then in addition to that, they will have a basal nucleus. That means their nucleus will be somewhat basal in position. Okay, and their cytoplasm will be rich in organelles. So there will be lots of organelles, mainly rough endoplasmic reticulums and ribosomes will be there. Okay, in addition to that organelles, there will be lots of vesicles here. So you'll have this type of vesicles in the follicle.
At what time you finish?
12 baje. So you will have lots of vesicles. Vesicle means sac-like structures will be there in the cytoplasm. Okay, and these vesicles, according to their content, may be of 3 types. That means some of these vesicles will contain thyroglobin. Okay, whereas some of them will contain the enzyme thyroxyperoxidase, and some of these vesicles will contain colloid. Okay, so am I clear till here? I'll repeat once again. You see, in stimulated follicle, the follicular cells, that means cells that are lining these follicles, they are tall, cuboidal or columnar in shape. Okay, so and they will have a somewhat basally placed nucleus, and they will have apical microvilli. And their cytoplasm will be filled with numerous organelles, mainly rough endoplasmic reticulum, ribosomes, and Golgi bodies. Okay, so these 3 structures are predominantly found. Okay, so these 3 organelles, predominantly their cytoplasm will be filled with rough endoplasmic reticulum, ribosomes, and Golgi bodies. In addition to these organelles, they will also have numerous vesicles. Vesicles means sac-like structures. Okay, SAC. They will have sac-like structures, and those vesicles may contain various content, or they, depending upon the type of content they have inside them, these vesicles are of 3 types. Okay, so there may be vesicles that contains thyroglobin, there may be vesicles containing thyroxyperoxidase, and there may be vesicles containing colloid. Now, in addition to that, in the stimulated phase, the colloid will be somewhat vacuolated, okay, and non-uniform. Whereas in case of resting phase, you see the colloids are dense and uniform. But here, in stimulated phase, the colloid is vacuolated. That means you will have cavities inside the colloid here, and they will be non-uniform. Okay, from that you can easily say this picture what you see here. So this is a thyroid gland in resting phase. Okay, now inside the lobule, I told there will be follicule, there will be parafollicular cells, and there will be interstitia. Okay, now let's discuss about the parafollicular cells, which are also called as C cells. Now, if you see, let us say this is a lobule of one thyroid gland. So in that lobule, no doubt these are follicles, and at the center, this is colloid. Now, these cells you see here, so these are all parafollicular cells. Okay, these are all parafollicular cells. And this area here, this is interstitium, and this is a blood vessel or capillary. Now, the parafollicular cells, they are of neural crest origin. Okay, if you see their origin, these cells, they are derived from the neural crest. And they are also a part of the apart system of the endocrine cells. They are part of apart system. Apart system stands for amine precursor uptake decarboxylase. Okay, that means you see the endocrine gland, no, they are widely distributed, and different endocrine gland, like they produce different types of hormone. Okay, but few endocrine glands, no, they have a common characteristic. That common characteristic is that you see this apart group of cells, no, they actually take up they has the ability to take up amine precursor from the blood. Okay, they will take up the amine precursor from the blood and they will convert them into amines. Okay, they will convert them into amines because many of the hormones secreted by the endocrine glands are amine. Okay, so this apart group of cells, they has the ability to pick up amines from the blood and transform them into amines by the process of decarboxylation. Okay, and all those endocrine glands which has this activity, the activity of or the property of taking up amines from the blood and converting them, taking up amine precursor from the blood and converting them into amine through the process of decarboxylation, we call all those cells together as apart cells. Okay, so these parafollicular cells, they are a part of the apart system of endocrine cells. Now, the parafollicular cells, they may be distributed singly or they may be in group. Now, if you see here, this is an C cell or parafollicular cells which is distributed singly. But if you see here, these are parafollicular cells which are in group. That means the parafollicular cells within the lobule of a thyroid gland may be distributed singly or it may be in groups. So these are single distribution, these are group distributions. In addition to that, these parafollicular cells may be within the basal lamina or outside. Now let us say this is one follicle. Here you can see one dotted line here. Okay, so that dotted line represents the basal lamina. Now, if you see this group of parafollicular cell, they are within the basal lamina. But if you look at this group of parafollicular cell, it is outside the basal lamina. Okay, so remember, they may be distributed singly or in group, or they may be within the basal lamina, like here, or here, or here, or here, or they may be outside the basal lamina, like here. They may have different type of distribution. And usually these cells, this is a schematic representation actually. In a slide, if you see, these cells will be always lighter in color. Okay, these follicular cells will be somewhat darker in color. They will be appearing dark pink in color, whereas these parafollicular cells, they will be appearing somewhat light in color. And they are responsible for producing one hormone that is called as the calcitonin. And the function of the calcitonin is to suppress calcium reabsorption from the bone. Now, if you look at this image here, this slide here, so here you see this is a thyroid follicle. Okay, so here these all blue these dots you can see, these are all follicular cells. Okay, now in between the follicular, if you see here, so this is a C cell or parafollicular cell. So this cell, if you see, it is light compared to the follicular cells. That's why it was saying they have a light staining cytoplasm. That means they are lighter in color. So these are follicular cells. Here, if you see, this is a follicular cell. So that way, here again, this is another follicular cell. Here, one follicular cell. Parafollicular cell. These are parafollicular cells. Then comes the next gland, that is the parathyroid gland. Now, the parathyroid gland, from the name itself, it implies it will be always near the thyroid gland. Para means side. Okay, so it is on the side of the thyroid gland. And just like the thyroid gland, the parathyroid gland also will be covered by a capsule made up of dense, irregular connective tissue. Okay, and just like the thyroid gland, again, connective tissue septa will arise from the capsule, which will divide the gland into number of lobules. And each lobule is in turn made up of two types of cells. So in the parathyroid gland, you will have two types of cells, namely the principal cells and the oxyphil cells. So try to remember. Okay, questions are being asked. What are oxyphil cells are seen in which gland? There is one more cell that is called as oxantic cell. OX. Oxantic. I forgot the name. Okay, one more common name is there. OXYENTIC, I think. Okay, so oxantic cell is there. So that cell you find in the stomach. Okay, but oxyphil cells, they are found in the parathyroid gland. So in the parathyroid gland, you find two types of cells: principal cells and oxyphil cells. And the interstitium, that means the connective tissue between these cells, they are rich in blood vessels. Now here, if you see in this slide here, so this area is a thyroid gland. Okay, so here these are thyroid follicle filled with colloid, and adjacent to the thyroid gland, so this area here that you see, so this is a parathyroid gland. So parathyroid gland are always adjacent to the thyroid gland. Okay, now inside this parathyroid gland, now you find two types of cells. I told you, one is principal cell. So this is the principal cell. Majority of the cells are principal cells, and this large cell that you see here, so these are oxyphil cells. So two type of cells are found in the parathyroid gland: principal cells and oxyphil cells. Now the principal cells, again, they are of two types: inactive principal cells and active principal cells. That means some of the principal cells will be in active state of secretion and some will be in resting state of secretion. So the resting principal cells, they are called as inactive principal cells, whereas the secreting parathyroid principal cells, we call them as the active principal cells. Now, inactive principal cells are the predominant type of cells. Okay, and they are they have a light cytoplasm and they are in the resting state of secretion. Okay, predominantly what type of cell you will find? You will have inactive principal cells with light cytoplasm. Whereas the active principal cells, they are relatively large cells. Okay, they will be larger cells and they will have granules in their cytoplasm. Okay, because they are active, isn't it? Active means they are producing hormones. Okay, the precursor of the hormone will be in the form of some granules in their cytoplasm. And because of the presence of those granules, the cytoplasm will be dark and eosinophilic. Dark and eosinophilic means pink in color. It will be dark and pink in color. Okay, and these granules are what? They are actually one hormone, and that hormone is parat hormone. And what is the function of parat hormone? The function of parat hormone is to increase the calcium level in blood. Now coming to the oxyphil cells, the oxyphil cells are very large, as you can see here. Okay, so you can see 2 oxyphil cells here, 4 here also, 4 to 5 oxyphil. So they are very large in cells and they may be distributed singly or in cluster. So here mainly you are finding in cluster form, but they may be also distributed singly. Okay, you may have one here like that. And they will have a lightly stained eosinophilic cytoplasm and occasionally pycnotic nucleus. Pycnotic nucleus means degrading nucleus. Okay, they may have occasionally degrading nucleuses. Next gland that I am going to discuss is the adrenal gland. Now, if you see the location of the adrenal gland, it is always located near the kidney. So if you see here, in cattle, so this is the kidney. Just on one end of the kidney, you will have the adrenal gland. So they are paired gland, always located near the kidney. And each adrenal gland is in turn made up of an outer cortex, which is derived from mesoderm, and then inner medulla, which is derived from neuroectoderm. So they will have an outer cortex. So this is the outer cortex, which is derived from mesoderm. It is mesodermal in origin, and in this inner medulla, it is neuroectodermal in origin. So remember, adrenal gland has an outer cortex and inner medulla. Now the cortex of the Adrenal gland, it is covered by a capsule. So you will have one connective capsule, connective tissue capsule here, and that capsule is in turn made up of dense irregular connective tissue with occasional smooth muscle. That means not only connective tissue fibers will be there, you may find one or two smooth muscle fibers or smooth muscle cells also may be found in the capsule. And the stroma, that is the supporting fibers here, the stroma that we find here, so they are mainly made up of reticular fibers. Now the adrenal cortex, all of us again know it has been divided into three zones: zona glomerulosa, zona fasciculata, and zona reticularis. Now if you see in this picture here, so this is capsule, okay, from here to here this is cortex, and this is medulla. Okay, now this adrenal cortex, it is again divided into three zones. Till here somewhere you can say this is zona glomerulosa, and here almost from here you can say here onward. So this area is zona reticularis, and in between them this is zona fasciculata. So three zones are there: zona glomerulosa, zona fasciculata, and zona reticularis. If you look at the zona glomerulosa, then we find that the zona glomerulosa, it is made up of spherical to columnar cell. That means the cells that are found here, this is not in high magnification, no, this is around 5x or 10x. So you are not seeing the individual cells. But here, if you go for high magnification, then you will find the individual cells of the zona glomerulosa, they are spherical, that means they are round in shape, or they are columnar in shape. Usually in case of horse, they will be columnar in shape. In other animal, the cells of zona glomerulosa are round in shape. Okay, columnar shape are found mainly in case of horse, that is in equine. Now these cells, they may form irregular clusters or they may form cord. So this is cluster-like arrangement. They may be in form of clusters or they may form cord, this type. And this, if it is in the form of cord like this, in some animal, this cord is not straight. Rather, it forms a arc here this way. Okay, the cells will form one arc in some animal. Okay, so you see the cord-like arrangement may be straight cord this way, or it may be a arched cord this way. So in some animal, the cells of the zona glomerulosa, they form a curved cord. Okay, and in those animal, the zona glomerulosa is also called as zona arcuata. Arcuata because it is forming arc. If there is this type of arc-like formation in the zona glomerulosa, then it is called as zona arcuata. So remember, other name for zona glomerulosa is zona arcuata. And where it is called arcuata, it is called arcuata in equine, carnivore, and pig. That is in case of horse, dog, and pig, it is called as zona arcuata. Because in these species of animal, the cells of the zona glomerulosa, they form curved cord-like structures. Okay, they do not form straight cord, rather they form some curved or arched cord. That's why it is called as arcuata. Again, remember, very, very important, zona arcuata is seen in which animal? Okay, you have to remember this name of these animals, where it is found. In addition to that, the cytoplasm of these cells, whether it is arcuata or glomerulosa or whether it is spherical cell or columnar cell, whatever the cell morphology may be, but always you will find the cytoplasm of the cells of zona glomerulosa, they are filled with lipid droplets. There will be lots of lipid droplets in the cytoplasm. And this lipid droplet in turn helps in the formation of one hormone that is called as the aldosterone, which is a type of mineralocorticoid. So all of you know from your physiology classes, zona glomerulosa is responsible for secretion of the hormone aldosterone, which in turn helps in maintaining the electrolyte balance of the body. Then comes the next zone, that is the zona fasciculata. The cells of the zona fasciculata, again, they are cuboidal to columnar in shape. and they are always arranged in the form of radial chord. That means this type of arrangement only you will find, no curved chord, only radial or straight chords will be there this way. Okay, and in between this chord there will be blood vessels or sinusoids like this. So this is a sinusoid and these are radial chords. So that they are cuboidal to columnar in shape and they will form radial chords, and these individual chords, they will be separated by some sinusoids. And again, the cytoplasm of these cells, these cuboidal or columnar cells, they are again filled with numerous lipid droplets. And during processing, actually, these lipid droplets are lost. Okay, during processing, the lipid droplet usually gets lost. Okay, because of that, the cytoplasm appears vacuolated. That means there will be cavities within the cytoplasm of these cells. Okay, or they will have a foamy cytoplasm. And because of that, the cells of the zona fasciculatas are also called as spongiocytes. It is very, very important again from the examination point of view. Questions are asked like, spongiocytes are seen in which layer of the zona of the adrenal cortex or adrenal gland? Or you may be asked like, spongiocytes are seen in where? Okay, so remember, spongiocytes are seen in zona fasciculata. Okay, and why they are called as spongiocyte? Because their cytoplasm is vacuolated and foamy. As a result, it just resembles a sponge. That's why they are also called as spongiocytes. And the secretory product of the zona fasciculata, all of us again know, they produce different types of glucocorticoids like cortisol and corticosterone. And the main function of the cortisol and corticosterone, all of us know again, they participate in the metabolism of protein, fat, and carbohydrate, and they also has this anti-inflammatory activity. So you have already heard of that physiological phenomenon, no, where what you say, when an animal is in shock, no, then they fight or flight reaction. You have been told in physiology or not? Flight or fight reaction. Hello,
yes, sir.
You have heard, no? So that reaction is mainly due to the release of this hormone, cortisol. This hormone cortisol is responsible for the fight or flight reaction. Okay. Then comes the third layer of the what you say cortex. So there the third layer is zona reticularis. So the zona reticularis, again, it is made up of polyhedral cells. Okay, again here the cells, they will form cords this way. So they will form cords, but here these cords are not radially arranged, or they are not parallel to each other. Rather, one cord will be going in this direction, one in another direction. Okay, so they will be crossing. So some cord in this direction, some in this direction, like that. They will go in different direction. Because of that, there will be crisscrossing of the cords, and because of that, they will have a reticular arrangement. Reticular means this type of arrangement is called as reticular arrangement. Okay, so that's why this layer here, it is called as zona reticularis. So zona reticularis, remember, they are made up of polyhedral cells which forms anastomosing cords. That means they will form cords of cell this way, but that cords are not in a single direction, or they are not parallel to each other. Rather, they will be going in different direction. As a result, there will be formation of a meshwork, and because of that, it is called as zona reticularis. And here also the individual cell cords, they will be separated by sinusoids, and the cytoplasm of these polyhedral cells, they are again filled with lipid droplets. Okay, but the amount of lipid droplet will be less than of the zona fasciculata. And in addition to that, their cytoplasm is also filled with rich in lipofunctin, and the secretion of these cells, the polyhedral cells, they will also secrete the same hormone as that of zona fasciculata. That means cortisol, and it will secrete glucocorticoids. Then comes the last part of the adrenal gland, that is the adrenal medulla. So this area is adrenal medulla here. So in the adrenal medulla, you find basically two types of cell. One is called as the glandular endocrine cell, and the other one is called as the parasympathetic ganglionic cell. That means both these two types of cells are modified neurons. Okay, they are modified neurons. So in the adrenal medulla, basically two types of cells are there. Both are derived from neurons. Okay, now if you see the parasympathetic ganglionic cells, they may be distributed singly or they may be in clusters and may be found among the endocrine cells. Okay, just remember they may be distributed singly or they may be in cluster. Whereas if you look at the glandular endocrine cells, then you will find they are polyhedral to columnar in shape. That means they will be polyhedral this side or they may be columnar this way. And they may form irregular cords or they may form cluster. They may form cluster this way or they may form cords. And each cluster and cord in turn again will be separated by sinusoid. So those are repetition only, almost same for all the glands, endocrine glands. Now here you remember, these endocrine cells, they are also called as chromaffin cell. Again, very, very important from examination point of view. Chromaffin cells are seen in adrenal medulla. Okay, and these chromaffin cells are what? They are actually the glandular endocrine cells of the adrenal medullas are also called as chromaffin cell. Why they are called as chromaffin cell? Because the glandular endocrine cells of the adrenal medulla, they have affinity for chromium salt. Okay, they have affinity for chromium salt. That's why they are also called as chromaffin cell. Try to remember again, chromaffin cell, where they are found and why they are called as chromaffin cells. Again, these chromaffin cells again are a part of the apart system of endocrine cells. That means they has the ability to take up amine precursor and decarboxylate them to form amines. Now, as I again told, these endocrine cells or glandular endocrine cells, they are a type of neuron, isn't it? So these cells, they are derived from postganglionic neurons. Okay, just you remember they are derived from some type of neuron. That much is sufficient, and they are also innervated by the preganglionic sympathetic fibers. Now, the chromaffin cells or the endocrine cells of the adrenal medulla again are of two types. Okay, so that classification is based on type of secretion. So what they are secreting. So based on the type of secretion, endocrine cells or chromaffin cells of the adrenal medulla are of two types, namely epinephrine producing cells or epinephrine cells and norepinephrine cells. So epinephrine and norepinephrine both are neurotransmitters. Okay, that means some of the chromaffin cells of the adrenal medulla will secrete epinephrine and some will secrete non-epinephrine. So based on that, they are divided into two types, epinephrine cells and non-epinephrine cells. The epinephrine cells, they are large in number. Okay, so they are around 80% of the cells are epinephrine cells, and one characteristic of this epinephrine cell is that they has less affinity for chromium salt. Okay, whereas the non-epinephrine cells, they form around 20% of the endocrine or chromaffin cells here, and they have more affinity or attraction for chromium salt. As a result, if you see here, so these are epinephrine cells. So if you see, their cytoplasm is pinkish in color. Okay, because a special stain has been done here to show the chromaffin cells. Okay, so here whatever cell is appearing more pink in color are the non-epinephrine cell, and whatever cells which are appearing less pink in color or normal, so those are the epinephrine cells. So most of the cells that you see here, so these are all epinephrine cells. Okay, whereas this pinkish color that we see here, this cell, so these are non-epinephrine cells. Whereas this large cell that we see here, so these are the ganglionic cells. So these are neurons. Okay. If you remember, I told you in the last class, like the neurons, they will have a spherical to avoid nucleus, and the nucleus will be euchromatic, that is, it will be light in color, and they will have a prominent nucleolus. You see, so this encircled area here, so this is the nucleus, euchromatic, spherical or ovoid nucleus with a prominent nucleolus. So from that, you know, this is one neuron, this is another neuron. So these are ganglionic cell, these are norepinephrine cell, and the remaining whatever cells you are finding here, these are all epinephrine cells. So this is a slide of the adrenal medulla. Okay, so adrenal medulla, I'll repeat once again, two type of cell you find, ganglionic cells and glandular endocrine cell. Glandular endocrine cells again divided, they are also called as chromaffin cell because the glandular endocrine cell has affinity towards chromium salt. Okay, and these glandular endocrine cells, again, according to their type of secretion, are of two types, epinephrine cell and norepinephrine cell. Norepinephrine cell will have more affinity towards chromium salt, so that's why they will appear somewhat dark pink in color. Their cytoplasm will appear dark pink in color, whereas the epinephrine cells will have a normal cytoplasm, lighter cytoplasm rather than these are the ganglionic cells. Now, in case of horse, cow, sheep, and goat, if you find, you'll see that the epinephrine and norepinephrine cell, no, they will be arranged in a orderly manner, you can say. So in the medulla, suppose if this is the gland here, let us say this is medulla, this central part. So here on the outer zone of the medulla, you will have only epinephrine cells. Okay, whereas in the inner zone of the medulla, you will have norepinephrine cell. Okay, so this type of regular arrangement you will find only in case of horse, cow, sheep, and pig. So there, the epinephrine cell will be on the outer zone of the medulla, and norepinephrine cell will be on the inner zone of the medulla. And lastly, you see, again, if you remember from the last class, I told you that endocrine glands, they may come together to form some particular organ or some particular glands, like we have discussed, pituitary gland, thyroid gland, adrenal gland. So those are adrenal glands, where the endocrine cells have come together to form a particular organ. Okay, but I told you, in addition to that, the endocrine glands may also themselves get incorporated to some other organ, like in case of testes, pancreas. In the pancreas, you have islet of Langerhans, so that is endocrine part, but the surrounding the islet, the other part is exocrine pancreas, isn't it? So the endocrine gland may form a single, they may come together to form a single organ, or they may be a part of some organ. Okay, so when these endocrine cells become a part of an organ, then these endocrine cells may be in groups or they may be distributed singly. Okay, suppose you take the case of pancreas. Okay, so in the pancreas, suppose this is the pancreas. In the pancreas, suppose the whole of the exocrine pancreas is there, then you will have in between, there will be endocrine pancreas. So in the endocrine pancreas, what will be there? The endocrine cells, they will form cluster this way. Okay, that means the endocrine cells which are forming a part of another organ, there the endocrine cells may be in cell groups or may be single. Okay, cell group is mainly found in the islet of Langerhans of the pancreas, whereas single distribution of endocrine cells, they are mainly found in heart, in the gonads, that is in the testes and ovaries, and in the mucous membrane of gastrointestinal tract and respiratory tract. Okay, so try to remember, endocrine cells, they may come together to form one gland, or one organ, or they may become a part of one organ. When they become a part of one organ, then these cells may be in group or they may be distributed singly. So group arrangement is found in the islet of Langerhans of the pancreas, whereas the single arrangement, it is found in the mucosa of the gastrointestinal tract and respiratory tract, and also in the heart and gonad. Okay, thank you. That is all for today's class. Any doubt if you have, you can ask me, or we can just finish the class. Hello class, am I audible? Any doubt?
Thank you.
No doubt.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, thank you. Thanks a lot.
Thank you,
Thank
sir.
you, sir. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Welcome, welcome. Thank you. Thanks for attending. Okay, then I'm stopping, huh? Okay, bye. Take care.